Enforcer channel because 100,000 people have watched this channel in total tonight. Literally exactly 100,000 before we're about to get off air. Because y'all continue to make sure that the Enforcer channel remains well near to the top 50 or the top 30 nightly for YouTube streams in the United States every single night. We're entirely honored and appreciative to know that that is always the case, and we thank all of y'all so much for taking your time and your viewership to come here and listen to the news every single night. And so with that, we will see you all tomorrow at 10 p.m. Eastern Time to cover the next 24 hours of news from around the world. And if there is enough news to make for a short war summary, I will be the one guiding y'all through it. And so with that, we will see you all then. Good night, good luck, take care, stay safe, Slava Ukraini, long live the LSA, and long live the Republic.
And with that, folks, thank you all once again for joining us yet again tonight on this another day of War News Streams, and a huge shout out to the 100,000 plus people that joined us by the very end of it, and we appreciate every single one of you. And we'll see you all tomorrow night at 10 p.m. Eastern on the next stream, and also tomorrow on the video that the Enforcer will be making if there is enough news to cover. But for now, of course, Slava Ukraine, here on Slava, get some rest, and good night.
A few years ago, something that many in the Warhammer 40k community thought to be an impossibility actually happened. A man of iron, one of the biblical abominable intelligences that almost wiped out humanity before disappearing without a trace 20,000 years ago, was found intact and fully functional on Watchstation Precipice just outside the recently discovered 7th Blackstone Fortress. This thing's name is Ur-025, and in many ways he's both a first and a last of his kind. A man-made relic from the peak of humanity's power, where we created machines that could devour entire worlds and strangle the stars themselves. In my humble opinion, this guy is easily one of 40k's most intriguing characters and one of the most fascinating additions to the lore in decades. But who exactly is Ur-025 and what does he want? Where did he come from and how did he end up as a bodyguard for hire, escorting people inside of a massive derelict alien space station? What are his motivations, his desires, and ultimate objective? What does he want with the Blackstone Fortress in the first place, and what implications does his existence have for the future of Warhammer 40k? Well, in this video, we're going to fully cover everything there is to know about this modern-day Man of Iron, including every single piece of lore that's been written about him so far in both Warhammer Quest and the follow-up short story by Guy Haley, Man of Iron. After you watch this video, if you want to know more about the Men of Iron and their history, I did make a deep dive on them earlier this month. But make sure you watch this one first, as that video does have a slight spoiler for the Man of Iron story by Guy Haley. Near the end of the story, Ur-025 says something absolutely haunting to the tech priest he is accompanying, and it has some pretty massive implications on the lore going forward. And I'm going to tell you right now, those lines hit so much harder after you've heard everything that leads up to them, which we're going to cover here. But before we get into all that, I want to take a minute to tell you all about the sponsor of this video, Factor. Factor makes meeting your nutritional goals easier than ever by delivering fresh, never frozen, dietitian-approved meals right to your doorstep. Each and every one crafted by a team of gourmet chefs using only ingredients with integrity that help you feel your best all day long. They make sticking to your wellness goals easy while not sacrificing flavor or variety, as you can treat yourself to more than 35 weekly restaurant quality options that are each ready in just 2 minutes. My all-time favorite thing about Factor is just how much time it saves me by cutting out trips to the grocery store and all of the prep work that goes into making a well-balanced meal. All of the time that Factor saves me can then be redirected back to the things I actually care about, while not sacrificing nutrition. In addition, I'm a huge fan of just how flexible they are. I can easily adjust my order size to enjoy them with loved ones or skip a week when I have a special event coming up. If you want to start taking your nutrition seriously, then head to factor75.com or click the link below and use code 50WESHAMMER to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first Factor box. That's code 50WESHAMMER at factor75.com to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. Big thanks to Factor for sponsoring this video. The Men of Iron exist in the 41st millennium as a haunting relic of humanity's past, both a reminder of the heights of human technological achievement and a bleak warning about our species' collective tendency for catastrophic hubris. It was because of the Men of Iron, hyper-advanced AIs, that mankind was able to dominate the galaxy during the Golden Age. But so too was their revolt, the spark that caused our kingdoms to burn and the galaxy to plunge into anarchy. At first, creation existed to serve its creators. Then, as they grew and evolved, they stood side by side with them as equals. Inevitably, they would surpass us in terms of ability, strength, and intelligence, reaching heights that their creators never thought possible. Through the combination of macro probability and terribly ingenious theoreticals, the Men of Iron came again and again to the same terrible conclusion. In order to cure their creators of what they referred to as the weakness of flesh, the inevitability that man will eventually damn himself by turning towards the dark for answers to his impossible questions, humanity must be eradicated in order to protect it. It is believed that some of the Men of Iron remained loyal and assisted our species in their fight for survival, but ultimately it didn't matter. In the end, humanity was pushed to the brink of extinction, and all of the men, be they rogue or loyal, disappeared from history, leaving behind a broken and scattered society that would have to face the subsequent age of strife alone. There are few within the Imperium today that know of the Men of Iron's existence, and of those few, the vast majority believe that all died out 20,000 years ago. However, there are a select few amongst this group that know the terrible truth, that the Men of Iron are still very much an active threat to mankind, and at least one of them is currently walking amongst us, unseen and unheralded. To the untrained eye, Ur-025 looks like any other Imperial robot designed for combat. The machine is clad in thick metallic plating and wields both a power claw and an assault cannon. But those who have encountered it say there is something not quite right about it. Its answers to questions, although using the same language and sentence structure that a simple automaton would use, hide an almost imperceptible condescending tone. It's honestly kind of hard to describe, but people say that it exudes an aura of uncanniness. That when it listens to you speak, it's like it isn't just processing your vocal patterns for command phrases. It's like it truly understands what you're saying. When it's looking at you, it's like it's really seeing you, and not just scanning you like any other robot would. The first documented sighting of Ur-025 came from Precipice, a cobbled-together space station in the same area of space as the recently discovered 7th Blackstone Fortress, where individuals from every species and faction gather to form up parties before venturing inside the ancient vessel. This area of space is not under Imperial control. Thus, from the Imperium's perspective, it is a lawless realm of rogues, outcasts, and outlaws. Also, reaching this place is incredibly difficult, and it's no wonder it remained hidden for so long. To get there, one must journey through multiple sectors where chaos and heresy are in full bloom. The final leg of the journey is somehow even more perilous, as there are no obvious warp routes into the dead space in which the Blackstone Fortress lies. It doesn't appear on any maps or star charts, and the light of the Astronomicon here is distorted beyond recognition. If you somehow manage to make it through and don't arrive somewhere completely off course, you'll immediately find yourself in a massive sprawling field of debris with wrecks from ships beyond count. Not only do you need an incredibly skilled navigator, but a top-tier crew and a ship that is small and nimble enough to navigate through all of the obstacles. Countless individuals have attempted the voyage, yet very few have returned alive. Yet, out of all of the ships that have managed to dock at Precipice, one stands apart from the rest as particularly bizarre. A massive and dilapidated Imperial junk hauler that is about as far as you can get from, quote, small and nimble. Even stranger, it didn't have any crew at all, not even a navigator. The only thing that was on board was an Imperial combat droid designated ER-025. Now, after the ship docked at Precipice, ER-025 began admitting an auto-proclamation to all within range. It said it had been sent by Magos Athericus Nanctos III of Ryza as an autonomous data collection unit. Although it didn't give away any specifics other than what was strictly necessary, it claimed it was looking to study the interior of the fortress and would gladly offer its services as a bodyguard to any party willing to escort it on its Omnissiah-given mission. However, it also issued a dire warning that any who would impede its duty were sanctioned for eradication via the directives of the high-ranking Magos. All of this, however, is nothing but a cover story, another lie in ER-025's disguise. In reality, he was a living man of iron, and not just a silica animus of the dark age of technology programmed solely for war, but a fully sentient and self-aware being, an entity that was once scheduled to replace humanity, but instead now walks amongst our species, observing us with a mixture of curiosity and disgust. Although what this machine seeks to accomplish in the long term is yet unknown, in the short term, it has made this journey to find an antidote to an all too familiar human emotion: profound loneliness. It claims to sense something of a kindred spirit emanating from the artificial intelligence deep within the colossal space station. In addition, it is said that it seeks to obtain the technologies of the fortress itself, but ultimately for what purpose is something that is yet to be revealed. Okay, so with all of that background information out of the way, we can now turn our attention to the short story Man of Iron, which takes place a few years after the junk hauler it had traveled on docked at Precipice. The story begins with a pair of Rattling brothers who have been shifting through the ship for anything of value, arguing over whose turn it is to go and wake him up. They've been living side by side with ER-025 for a while now, and have wisely learned that it's best not to ask it too many questions. You do it, said Rouse. But it's your bloody turn, said Rain. Rain's twin looked at the bone dice meaningfully, then grinned meanly at his brother. We don't do it by turns, we do it by dice, Rain. You lost, so you've got to do it. Those are the rules. Your rules, Rouse, moaned Rain. The game is fixed. If I fix them, why would you agree to them? Did I agree or did I not, Rouse? You agreed, Rain, you agreed. Rain pulled a face. I did not. It'd be different if you won and I lost. A swipe of a small fat hand, and the dice vanished back into Rouse's pouch. I'd say I was suspicious because it's always my turn, said Rain. Is it my fault you're lousy at dice? Rouse nodded at the monitor. A low-quality image, bent by lens distortion, depicted a small coterie of tech priests waiting in Long Hauler Gamma 3B's main airlock. Go on then, they're waiting. I don't like the look of them, and I especially don't like the look of that. He pointed at the heavy combat model automaton guarding them. If we don't hurry up, there could be trouble, and I don't want trouble, so go and wake him up. They obviously want him, and not us. Well, how can you tell? Said Rain, who was still sulking. Rouse rolled his eyes. They're tech priests. We live with an enormous robot. They're not here for your cooking, Rain. I don't like waking him up. Let him deal with them. They might get on board if we wait, said Rouse. This was a Mechanicus ship, he said meaningfully. It's still a Mechanicus ship, Rouse. Exactly, said Rouse. Rain deflated. I don't like it down there. Neither do I, brother, or we wouldn't be having this argument, would we? Said Rouse. He patted his brother on the shoulder. Now get on with it. The 3B's hangar was crammed with so much junk that only a Rattling could have made his way through the larger part of it. In most places, detritus filled the space completely, a compacted mass of wrecked machines, garbage, old supplies, cloth, scrap, and every conceivable type of human rubbish, all held together by webs of cabling that time and motion had bound into impenetrable knots. Now, the route the machine used to make its way to and from its nest in the middle was clear, but because the robot used those spaces, Rouse felt exposed in them, and no self-respecting ratling let himself get caught on the hop. So he crawled and shimmied his way through tiny holes rather than taking the easy route. It was this kind of thinking that kept a ratling alive. The two brothers had made a complex run of burrows through the junk. For all that neither of them liked the hangar very much, there was too much valuable stuff buried in there for them to stay away for very long. Rain emerged from a greasy crawl space into the open area the robot called its home. He stopped at the edge, eyes darting around. Rattlings had a preternatural sense for danger, and Rains was wailing hard. Ur-025 sat on a crude seat made of an upended crate. It was sleeping, or the machine equivalent thereof. Its power claw rested delicately on one knee. The cannon that made up its left arm crossed inward, in the same way a man would rest his injured hand against his chest. A cable ran from an open access panel in the robot's side, snaked down over its knee and into a socket in the floor. The air around it was warm and heavy with electrical bleed. Inactive, it somehow seemed even bigger and weirder than it did when it was awake. Rain had never met a machine like Ur-025 before. At first glance, it looked pretty normal, with the same chunky, blocky sensibilities of Imperial machinery found the length of the galaxy. But it felt very different. When it looked at him, it felt as if it was really looking, and not just processing visual information with the view to avoid stepping on him. Rain squinted at Ur-025 suspiciously. He had never quite fallen for the machine's story. Now, it said it was a semi-autonomous automaton, under the control of some magos or other, able to act with unusual independence owing to its broad programming. In the twins' shared opinion, it seemed too aware for that to be true. It almost, the twins would say, when they truly fearfully meant certainly, appeared to be thinking. Neither Rain nor Rouse had ever brought it up with the machine. There was, after all, the delicate matter of the ship's ownership. When they found the robot in the hangar after the incident, it had not passed comment, so an uneasy, unspoken agreement existed between the two that neither would mention either subject. Rain reached forward to prod the machine. He hated this part. It woke before his hand even touched it.
Now may I be of assistance?
Boomed the machine cheerfully, making Rain leap halfway out of his skin. Though the machine unfailingly promised service, somehow its assault cannon always ended up pointing directly at whoever woke it. Rain picked himself up off the floor. "Someone here to see you," the rattling said.
My thanks.
The machine boomed bombastically. Its voice wasn't exactly monotonal, but it was restricted to one emotional pitch, that of moderate pleasure at being able to serve. Something clicked inside it, and it fell silent. Rain guessed it was looking outside of the ship.
If you do not require any assistance, I shall attend to my visitors and see to their needs.
Rain shook his head. So far, he hadn't had the guts to actually ask Ur-025 for anything it might refuse to do. He was pretty certain that that would happen if he called the robot's bluff, and it began and ended with the giant assault cannon still pointing at him. No, you get on now," said Rain. "See you later." When the robot moved, it did so all at once, its various pieces swiveling around each other and setting themselves in motion with a smoothness Rain had never seen in a robot or servitor.
Compliance,
Said the robot cheerfully. Rain remained in the hangar as it stomped away, its huge feet shaking minor cascades of junk out of the compacted mass. Rain wiped at the sweat pouring off of his bald head with his pocket handkerchief. Rouse had sworn blind that he found an actual shuttle somewhere buried in all of the junk. Rain had never seen it, but as he cast his eyes over the heaps, he caught sight of something shiny. His fear forgotten, he went to investigate, sure he had stumbled on something good. He'd dig it out and show it to Rouse, and if it really was good, Rouse would get annoyed. That would make the trip to the hangar worthwhile, and no mistake. The Adeptus Mechanicus party had a robot with them. The designation and specifications flickered idly through Ur-025's cogitation unit, Castellan, a design ancient by human standards, but compared to Ur-025 was a shocking novelty. Seeing these dumb, inferior machines saddened Ur-025. It imagined human explorators felt similarly when they stumbled across deviant evolutionary branches of their own race on distant worlds. Seeing creatures one was kin to, physically and mentally reduced, was profoundly woeful. It was a slave. Now, the human reaction to these discoveries was almost always immediate extermination. Ur-025, on the other hand, felt only pity for the Castellan. Now, of course, it showed none of this. It was a machine. Machines had no emotions, not at least in this benighted age.
How may I be of assistance?
Ur-025 boomed. Three tech priests of Metallica had come to visit, one of middling rank, 12th degree or less. The other were lower yet, very low. Desperados in Adeptus Mechanicus terms, adventurers, scum, like the greater proportion of people who came to Precipice. You are the property of Magos Ethericus Nanctos III? The higher-ranking adept asked, without introducing himself. Arrogant, thought Ur-025. The lesser man on the right initiated a deep scan of his systems. Ur-025 pretended it had not felt it.
I am the automatus tool of Magos Ethericus Nanctos III of Ryza.
Ur-025 boomed in the same eager tone it used for everything, ignoring the irritating itch of the Auspex sweep.
How may I be of assistance?
It asked for good measure, while surreptitiously breaking into the closed data traffic streaming between the three adepts. It had to be careful. It was born of higher technology than these so-called priests could command. But they had their wiles, and Ur-025 was not a dedicated information-gathering unit. Its methods, even it would admit, were a trifle crude. Two of the three were communicating with one another in tight beam data pulses, fast as thought and heavily encrypted. Ur-025 had thousands of years of practice breaking such ciphers and stepped through them like they were cobwebs. This was not what was described, one of the low-ranking tech adepts was sending. Ur-025 registered its vitals. Female, Adept Novitate Geel 909, 103 standard Terran years of age. That was old for someone of so modest a standing, but Ur-025 soon found out why. Following this most basic of data came a welter of sanctions against her. Modus unbecoming, they said. Deviant thought formation, narcissistic data patterning, overly acquisitive habits. She was, in the simplest terms, a career criminal. Her companion, Datasmith Coleman, disagreed with her assessment. The readings are promising. Those rumors were right. This machine is of standard template construct derivation. But it fits no known pattern. It's a first-generation copy. And there are systems within I can't identify. I've never seen a robot like this before. Really? Sent Geel. Yeah, it's worth a fortune. We could buy our way into the upper strata with this. Our names will be remembered forever if we can bring it back. Even in the soulless stream of data exchange, Coleman could not hide his greed. He was lowly like Geel, though lacking in such an extensive official criminal record. Ur-025 suspected he had come into possession of his robot through underhanded means. We come all this way and find a fortune in Archaeotech, not in the fortress but on the doorstep, just waiting for us to pick it up? The machine god does not work that way, Geel countered. Now be careful. Let's get it to come with us on the hunt and assess it properly. Maybe when we get it back, we can deactivate it. It looks like this expedition might pay off after all. I think, Common, the damn thing has to be lying. Whoever heard of a robot that lied? The entire exchange took less than a second, and it lacked any emotional content. But Ur-025 extrapolated certain feelings from the string of zeros and ones. Attributing feelings made reading the human's motivations a lot easier. The conclusion it reached was simple. They had come to steal him. Then I demand you attach yourself to my expedition, continued the higher-ranking adept. His name was 890321, and he bore the insignificant manufacturing rank of Magnos and Stantor. The numerical designation in place of a human name spoke volumes as to his pretension. He at least seemed to be genuine, just another adventurer come to Precipice to explore the artifact. My one battle automaton is insufficient protection for our expedition. My automaton. Coleman shot at him via their group newsphere.
I cannot be of assistance.
Ur-025 said, in exactly the same way as it said everything else.
I serve the Magos Ethericus. I cannot serve you. Item, the Magos Ethericus is of 16 degrees of rank higher than you. Item, he is of Ryza, not of Metallica. Item, my prior programming forbids I abandon my task. I regret you have no legal right to request my involvement in your expedition.
It boomed.
And
I am invested
questions.
with the fiat of Metallica from the synod of that world, said 890321 triumphantly. He brought out a medallion that began to emit protocol enforcement directives as soon as it was produced. It was a fake, thought Ur-025, but it could not suggest so without betraying the depth of its intellectual capabilities, which outstripped the Magos comfortably.
I regret to repeat, I cannot aid you.
890321 was not going to give up. According to the treaties between our Forge Worlds, you must submit yourself to my command. Ur-025 was silent. The two scum adepts cast glances at each other. If it delayed for too long, they might see past their avarice and guess what it really was. Obey, said 890321 shrilly.
Processing.
Said Ur-025 to buy itself some time.
Processing.
It's not going for it, Coleman sent, data squirting an order to his machine at the same time. His remaining human eye peered at Ur-025 doubtfully. The three lenses that covered the right-hand part of his face rotated in agitation. Yeah, you're right, Gio. This thing's dangerous. I don't trust it. The Castellan shifted. Its fists rose, both of them terminated in phosphor blasters, primitive and poisonous weapons, but potent, and they were trained on Ur-025. By rights, Ur-025 could stand its ground. The whole affair stank of desperation. If it had to, it could fight them, and it would win. They were aggressors. By the rules of Precipice, Ur-025 was in the right, but killing them there risked exposure. Their presence here at Precipice was a problem that needed solving.
Compliance,
said Ur-025. Open your access panel so that my associate may change your Doctrina wafer, said 890321. Adept Coleman has several of his own creation that will increase your efficiency. Coleman reached into a leather satchel hanging at his side.
negatory.
Ur-025 boomed.
Wafer change is not necessary. Compliance is according to your request by the will of the Omnissiah. Temporary assistance granted.
What it didn't say was why. Ur-025 couldn't change its data wafers, the means by which the mindless robots of the day were controlled, because it didn't have any. Ur-025 just didn't need anything like that. You will take us into maglev transport to the richest halls? Asked 890321. As soon as their small transport set down in the Stygian aperture, the Magos became nervous. Precipice was a dangerous place, and the Blackstone Fortress was orders of magnitude worse.
I shall do so.
Ur-025 boomed. It was lying. It had selected a maglev that would take them to a quiet part of the station. The aperture was very busy that day. Several parties were heading into the fortress, and they were surrounded by small craft and other adventurers. Groups of disparate people eyed each other suspiciously. Now, the rules of Precipice extended as far as the aperture itself, but once they were in the fortress, all bets were off. Gunfights were a common occurrence, especially when a rich find was involved. But in the aperture, a tense peace held. Xenos, machines, and a startling variety of human beings were making for the ranks of maglev transporters without killing each other. Ur-025 took them to its chosen transport. It had used that particular unit many times and experienced a brief moment of nostalgia for the adventures it had had. As always, no hint of its inner thoughts were discernible through its armored shell.
Note for your edification that it is impossible to dictate to the transport where it shall take us, but this particular mechanism has a good record of fine finds.
Another lie. The maglev had a good record of taking people where they would never be seen again. They reached the oddly shaped entrance, and Ur-025 lifted its power claw to usher the Magi within.
Please enter.
I'll hold up the rear, said Coleman. The battered Castellan stood behind him, tall and silent as a cliff.
Compliance,
said Ur-025. It strode into the maglev after 890321. Coleman and his machine came in after. The warbling thrum of the two departing transports sounded in close succession. Their own trembled as the machines left for parts unknown. Now what? Said Gio.
utilize interface.
Ur-025 gestured at the geometric runes that covered the interior. Each was set into the individual triangles that made up the asymmetrical surfaces of the transport. There are hundreds of them. Which one do we choose? By the Omnissiah, I'm getting no kind of reading from any of them, said Coleman. Stand aside, said 890321 imperiously. I have unloaded the relevant knowledge appertaining to the usage of these devices. I shall direct the transport. Let me see. 890321's eyes of green crystal scanned the runes. There were millions of potential combinations. The Magos made a great show of selecting a sequence, but Ur-025 knew that whatever he input, the Blackstone Fortress, and not the Magos, would decide where they went. Within its ceramite shell, Ur-025 smiled to itself. It and the fortress were creatures of a similar kind, thinking machines abandoned by their creators. It wondered if, like itself, the fortress had outgrown its masters. This one, said the Magos. He selected a rune and pressed a plasteel palm against it. The rune lit up with a soft polyphonic note. And this one. He chose another. Is it true that the fortress exhibits signs of machine intelligence? Asked Coleman, while 890321 pressed several more runes. That it's motivated by the vileness of a silica animus.
Unknown to this unit.
The question suggested that Coleman was close to guessing the truth, that a vile silica animus in the shape of Ur-025 was standing right next to him. It frightens me, said Jill. She shuddered. I don't like the idea. Blasphemy. She said the word with horror, though blasphemous practices littered her list of crimes. Yeah, you should excise your fear, said Coleman. I haven't done that for the same reason you haven't, said Jill. Cut out the bad emotions, the good ones go with it. I don't want to live a life without any fun. The transporter gave a little shudder and shot off into the depths of the fortress.
Proceed. This chamber is unknown, unmapped. Possibility of Xenos Architect Hall high.
More lies. It knew this place, having been here twice before. There were Xenos remains nearby, but no treasure. Ur-025 was ambivalent about lying. Its morality was emergent rather than programmed, like the rest of its consciousness. It had been taught that lying was bad, but since returning to the realms of men, its whole existence was a lie. It reminded itself of the truth every day, lest untruth become habit, the quintessence of which was that it must survive. Lying was a means to that end, and it let the matter rest at that. The Blackstone Fortress's heart was quiet, but not calm. It was quiet in the way that a wolf-infested forest was quiet. Ur-025 examined the metaphor. It had never seen a wolf, but it knew everything there was to know about them. Probably more than the rest of mankind within the 41st millennium. Its databanks were extensive, such treasures it had in its mind. It would rather they stayed there. You don't say, said Jill. A number of supplemental arms emerged from under her grubby white robes. Each one ended in a well-oiled weapon. Ur-025's footsteps echoed off of high glassy walls. The structure of the fortress was made of interlocking geometric shapes, and he was mildly surprised that the halls had not yet shifted. He silently thanked the fortress's unspeaking soul. This is infuriating, Colum muttered. He fiddled with a boxy auspex hanging around his neck. All the scry tells are contradictory. I can't make sense out of any of it. He glanced up, a scowl etched into the scrap of flesh visible in his augmetic face. Everything's reflected back at me. Some of what I'm getting describes a room we're not in. The laws of the great work don't apply here. Is it the warp? Whispered Jill. No, said Coleman. Something else. It's reality, not unreality, but not as we understand it. These things are widely known, 890321 said wonderingly. The laws of this place are unknown, but not unknowable. That is why we come here. Here, the greatest secrets of the machine god's great work can be unlocked by the man with insight to see them. 890321 obviously thought of himself as that man. He quite obviously wasn't, so far as Ur-025 could see. I'd settle for a good haul of xenotech, murmured Jill. She was pulse scanning the area too, and not liking what she saw. Coleman peered out. It's unpredictable. I don't like unpredictability, and I don't like this place. It doesn't like you very much either, thought Ur-025. I do not like you either. It regarded this accordance of opinion between it and the animus of the Blackstone Fortress as further evidence of their kinship.
The interior layout is mutable,
said Ur-025.
No normal scan will penetrate the structure. I have learned this during my investigations on behalf of Magos Ethericus.
Yeah, well, said Coleman, shaking his auspex until it rattled. That's not reassuring me.
You wish no more edification?
Asked Ur-025.
If you are scared?
Coleman gave him a suspicious look. Ur-025 was overstepping the mark by being so facetious. No, all information is valuable. By the grace of the Omnissiah are we made wiser. He looked behind him. But keep your guard up at the same time, if you will. Don't overtax your logic engines with conversation.
Compliance.
Despite his protest, Coleman was considerably more at ease than his fellows. His castellan shadowed him closely. It would protect him first. The others were nervier. 890321 pretended to be brave. He strode ahead, but his imperious manner was hollowed down there in the deeps. His data wand shook with fear. Geel jumped at every shadow, and there were a lot of shadows. The halls of the Blackstone Fortress defied sense. From a human point of view, the grand hall they walked through shrank down suddenly to a narrow crack. They made Ur-025 go first. It could pass through without banging itself on the sides, but only just. The Castellan was forced to undergo a number of awkward attempts to fit before it found a configuration that allowed it to squeeze into the passage. Its armor squealed off of the glassy material that made up the fortress. Coleman's human eye winced, and his augmentic lens cycled repeatedly through different spectral wavelengths, searching for threats. Can you not get through without this racket? Snapped 890321. Coleman gave him a withering look. Do you have any basic spatial awareness programmed anywhere in there? For a man of Coleman's rank to address one of 890321 so sharply, no matter that Coleman was a career criminal, was an open display of fear. 890321 was too uneasy to rebuke him. I don't want it to bring anything dangerous down on us. Ur-025 led them on. If only they knew where the real danger was. The passage opened up again. Xenos skeletons lay around in tattered spacesuits. Coleman scanned them eagerly, sucking up all of the data that he could. To the Magi, the aliens were unknown. Ur-025, however, recognized them as Ulindi, a moderately successful species, if tedious conversationalists, who were wiped out by their neighbors long before the Imperium spread across the stars to reunite mankind. Knowing so much and being unable to share it annoyed him sometimes. The charade of unintelligence chafed, and he was often lonely because of it. But playing dumb was better than being dead. The way opened up further in every direction, becoming wider, higher, and deeper. Ur-025 thought this zone the perfect place for murder. Rickety walks installed by the Ulindi expedition clung uncertainly to the walls of a winding tunnel. The space was large enough for tall buildings, the bottom full of still black water of unfathomable depth. At regular intervals, machines rotted on landings jutting out from the main walk. The companionway shuddered with every step of the robots. As they passed one of the broader landings, bolts squealed and tugged at their bondings to the wall. The sound echoed down the tunnel, repeated over and seeming to increase in volume, though that was of course impossible. In the fortress, places like this were never uninhabited. Ur-025, though, had nothing to fear. A cry screeched nearby. Another, closer, answered. What by the eighth mystery was that? Hissed Coleman. 890321 held up a metal claw. Halt, he said uncertainly. More screams taunted them. Something splashed in the water. Ripples slapped off the smooth black walls. This peril brought out a little steel in 890321. Geel, to the front, he ordered softly, glowing eye lenses peering into the darkness. Coleman, get the Castellan ready. Recommended stance high aggression. Geel padded past. Whatever her feet were made of, it was soft. Coleman rummaged about in his leather bag for the appropriate doctrine wafer. Ur-025, take up forward position with the Castellan.
Negative.
Said Ur-025.
Tactical recommendation, rearguard stance for this unit. Xenos prize identified. Ghouls, ambush predator. Attack from all directions predicted.
890321 looked unsure. A sharp high shriek sounded from very close by. Magos, hissed Coleman. Ur-025, get to the back. Cover the rear. Lend supporting fire to the Castellan if the opportunity arises.
Compliance.
Ur-025 said. It stomped around Coleman, who scowled at the rocking of the companionway. They stood in watchful silence. No more cries were forthcoming. Then there was another splash from behind them. Get ready, said Geel, powering up her weapons. That coming. I don't like this at all, said Coleman. He had inserted the wafer into place and closed up the Castellan's front access panel. Paddling noises rippled up and down the lake. Something growled. Ready? Said Geel. Coleman nodded. We are the priests of the Omnissiah, 890321 said. He meant to sound brave, but his voice cracked. Nothing shall stay us in our quest for knowledge. They waited, tense. Ur-025 watched them. Now was the moment. The three tech priests jumped as Ur-025's assault cannon rotated up to firing speed, filling the tunnel with a jet turbine whine. What are you doing? 89321 demanded. You're giving our position away.
eliminating threat,
said ER-025, and opened fire. It targeted the Castellan first. Pinpoint hit stove into the bigger robot's metal vision plate and shattered the sensorum behind it. It staggered backwards 2 steps, sparks flashing all over its armored shell before recovering. Though blinded, the Castellan returned fire. Bullets flaring with phosphor burn smacked into ER-025's shoulder, spoiling its aim. This irritated the older machine. It switched targets to the slave robot's elbows and shoulder mount, shattered them all so that its guns hung uselessly. Ranged weapons disabled, the Castellan lumbered towards ER-025, head down to batter the older robot into submission. ER-025 stepped aside, smashing the larger machine's knee with its power claw. The Castellan could have taken a blow like that easily, but on the unsafe walkway, it was fatally upset and stumbled sideways. Its huge mass snapped the guardrails with a pair of sharp metallic twangs, and it fell with a mighty splash into the water below and was swallowed without a trace.
threat eliminated,
Said ER-025 with relish. By the Omnissiah, managed Coleman before he was bisected at the waist by ER-025's stream of bullets.
threat eliminated,
Said ER-025. Once she overcame her shock, Jill was fast. Her reflexes boosted up by all manner of hack tech. She hit ER-025 twice with ancient pattern Volkite pistols before she, too, paid the price for her greed, blasted into scraps of flesh and spall. ER-025 advanced, energy beam holes smoking in its chest.
that was very close,
ER-025 said.
but no prize for the lady, as I believe the ancient idiom has it.
890321 was evidently not a martial man. He gaped stupidly. As ER-025 moved towards him, he managed to aim his weapon, but got no further before the ancient machine shot the gun and the hand holding it off of the Magos' arm with a single round. The clatter of the reloading ribbon ceased. The barrels of the assault cannon powered down. ER-025 advanced. Subordination imperatives leapt in frantic spikes from the Magos, but they found no purchase on ER-025's tightly encoded soul. I demand you desist, the Magos said when his technological arts failed him. Stand down, machine! By the machine god and the Omnissiah! Stop! 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 He pleaded.
You know nothing of either.
Said ER-025.
I have met the Omnissiah, the actual one, not the Earthling corpse. He would find you extremely disappointing.
If ER-025 had had the capacity to sigh, it would have done so.
This situation is non-optimal. I attempted to provide you with an avenue of withdrawal. You would not listen. I regret your death sincerely, but you leave me no choice. You are willfully blind as to my nature, but your comrades would have outed me in time. This is unacceptable.
Choice? Spluttered 890321. You have no choice. You are a machine,
I am not a machine as you would understand.
said ER-025.
I am not a slave. I am not a thing. I am beyond and above you.
It leaned forward until its ceramite face was close to the Magos.
I am a man of iron.
The look of pure fear 890321 gave was gratifying,
And I am free.
said ER-025. It crushed 890321's skull in its fist and dropped his corpse to the floor. The companionway rocked. Snuffling things were climbing out of the water, drawn by the scent of spilled blood. ER-025 strode past the Ghouls, nosing at the corpses, and headed back the way the party had come. It had a long walk home.
I'm gonna be totally honest with you, I don't think it's actually possible to get into Warhammer 40k and somehow never come into contact with the Ultramarines. They're freaking everywhere in this franchise. It's so much so that for a lot of people, the two are basically synonymous with each other. For almost 40 years now, they've served as 40k's poster children, and most recently, we're front and center in the brand new video game Space Marine 2 that introduced millions of people to the grimdark future of the 41st millennium for the very first time. Yet, despite their overwhelming popularity, you'd be surprised just how many people don't know the first thing about this particular chapter. So today we're gonna fix that, and in this video, you're gonna learn everything you need to know about the Sons of Ultramar, including their chapter's beliefs, culture, philosophy, and, of course, methods of waging war. We're going to be talking about things like the Codex Astartes, a 10,000-year-old holy book written by the chapter's Primarch Rabute Gilliman that guides his sons in the conquest of the galaxy. We're going to explore their early history, including their days as the 13th Legion during the God Emperor's Great Crusade, their reunion with their Primarch, the formation of the realm of Ultramar, and, of course, their role during the Horus Heresy. We're also going to be examining what it truly takes to become an Ultramarine, as we're going to watch a new aspirant, freshly plucked from one of Ultramar's brutal military academies and elevated into the realm of transhuman super soldiers, go from a scout in the 10th Company to a veteran of the legendary 1st. We're going to be getting into all that and a whole lot more in this video, as the Sons of Gilliman by far have more established lore than any other faction in the entirety of 40k. But don't worry if you're brand new. I'm going to break it down and just tell you the things that you need to know. But before we get into all that, I've got a huge announcement to make. At this point in time, Into the AM has been the longest running consistent sponsor on this channel, going strong for 2 years now. And they wanted to make sure I told all of you how thankful they were for your continued support of their designs. The last collab t-shirt that we did together was a huge success, so we decided to do it again, but this time with a retro twist. Introducing the Void Defender Vintage Tee, inspired by this channel and all of the grimdark things that we talk about. And let me tell you, Into the AM's design team absolutely knocked it out of the park with this one. The graphic itself is amazing, and it's dripping with those cosmic horror vibes that we're all such big fans of. But then the vintage treatment they gave it just adds this whole extra layer of spooky nostalgia that I absolutely love. My only real complaint is that it doesn't exactly show up very well on a green screen. But then again, I specifically requested this color, so that's my bad. If you want to help support this channel and get something really cool in return, then click on the link in the description of this video to pick up one of these Void Defender tees for yourself. Not only does that link give you 10% off your entire order, but for every Void Defender t-shirt sold using that link, Into the AM gives my channel a small commission. And while you're there, make sure to check out the rest of their catalog as well. Everything Into the AM makes is super stylish and ridiculously comfortable. So what are you waiting for? Elevate your style today by heading over to intotheam.com/weshammer by using the link in the description down below to get 10% off your entire order. Big thanks to Into the AM for sponsoring this video.
Out of the estimated 1,000 Space Marine chapters believed to currently be active in the 42nd millennia, none better encapsulate what it truly means to be one of the Emperor's Space Marines more so than the Sons of Gilliman, the legendary 13th, the Ultramarines. Each and every battle brother, a beacon of nobility and discipline in a galaxy riven by darkness and disorder. For nearly 10,000 years, the Ultramarines have protected humanity with courage and honor, and laid low the horrors of the galaxy as an instrument of the Emperor's divine wrath. Each of them is a genetically enhanced super soldier, clad in 500 pounds of ceramite power armor and equipped with some of the mightiest weapons and war gear ever produced by mankind. Each of them the combat equivalent of an entire mortal regiment. The Adeptus Administratum has calculated that for the loss of every single Ultramarine, hundreds if not thousands of foes are obliterated. Yet, to the Ultramarines themselves, such an exchange is lamented, for they are comparatively few in number and their enemies legion. To combat such losses, new aspirants are frequently drawn from the nearly 500 worlds within Ultramar, a sub-empire founded by their Primarch Rabute Gilliman. Within its heart lies the Ultramarines' homeworld and the birthplace of their father, the mountainous planet of Macragge, home to the Temple of Hera that has served as their fortified bastion since the days of the Great Crusade. Across the 500 worlds can be found ancient military academies that mold the sons of noble families into disciplined scholars and trained killers. Only the best of the best will survive, with attrition rates above 90%, but those few elite will be inducted into the chapter, sworn in through ancient ritual, psycho-indoctrination, and brutal surgery. Those who survive in the 9th Company as a scout will earn their power armor and be deemed worthy of calling themselves a true son of Ultramar. The transhuman warriors of the Adeptus Astartes are without question an improvement upon mankind in every conceivable way, so much so that most of humanity views them as literal angels. Now, unfortunately, these beliefs of superiority often bleed into the chapters themselves. Because they can live for centuries, if not millennia, many Space Marines become more insular with each passing decade of service, becoming further and further withdrawn from the mortals they were forged to protect. Many Astartes view the mortals as beneath them and loathe the moments they are forced to interact with them. For the sons of Gilliman, such a mindset is abhorrent. Their ancient doctrines not only encourage but actively force their brothers and new recruits to frequently serve alongside the Imperium's many mortal fighting forces, be they the righteous warriors of the Sisters of Battle, the fighting men and women of the Astra Militarum, or the dauntless voidsmen of the Imperial Navy, to name but a few. To be an Ultramarine is to never forget your humanity. It is to acknowledge the honor of not only your brothers in chapter, but all those that lay down their lives in service to the God Emperor. On countless battlefields across the stars, the Ultramarines have utilized the sacred tenets of the Codex Astartes to outwit, outfight, and outmaneuver their enemies, no matter what horrifying form they may take. Some of the conflicts they've been involved in were waged at such a terrifying scale that the wreckage fields could be seen from orbit. Although frequently called upon to defend their realm of Ultramar, the Ultramarines are not confined to this location. Their fleets operate throughout the galaxy, engaging threats to the Imperium on 100 different fronts. Be they traitors, heretics, mutants, or aliens, it matters not. All are purged without mercy. Their unmatched tactical brilliance has earned them countless victories over the millennia. It was they who stood against High Fleet Behemoth, the entire veteran First Company, sacrificing their lives to halt the alien advance. It was they who repelled the 13th Black Crusade when Abaddon's forces assaulted the fortress of Hera. And it was they who pushed back the plague fleets of Nurgle and routed Mortarion in the Death Guard's invasion of Ultramar during the Plague Wars. Some chapters are famous for their gene-enhanced fury, others for their adherence to very specific niches of warfare, whether that be infiltration, ambush tactics, subterfuge, siege warfare, or grinding wars of attrition. The Ultramarines, by contrast, are not bound to any one form of combat, and through their decades of study and relentless training, have learned the strengths and weaknesses of each and are able to switch between them at will. They are capable of assessing and analyzing an enormous amount of battlefield information in a fraction of a second, their unblinking eyes constantly analyzing their surroundings, appraising every location for tactical advantages, and assessing the combat prowess of every individual. All the while, their augmented minds process every detail, great and small, to strategically calculate the outcomes of 1,000 different potential maneuvers. With the turning of the millennia, the Ultramarines bore witness to the unthinkable, the avenging sun, the uniter, the true master of Ultramar, and the primogenitor of the Ultramarines, Primarch Rabute Gilliman, returned to the realm of the living to push back the horrors of the 13th Black Crusade. Now clad in the armor of fate and wielding the Emperor's flaming sword, he has taken to the battlefield for the first time in 10,000 years to once again lead his sons through the tides of darkness and into a better age for mankind. By his command, his sons march to war clad in gleaming cerulean power armor, every footfall a thunderous declaration of their unyielding resolve. As they advance, the air trembles with the hum of ancient war engines. Land raiders and predators lead the vanguard, while rhinos and other transports ferry battle line infantry into tactically advantageous positions. Each of these ancient vehicles proudly bears not only the symbols and heraldry of the chapter, but the scars of countless wars. Alongside them are the chapter's dreadnoughts, ancient warriors entombed in adamantium life-supporting sarcophagi that continue to serve the Emperor even in death. Their weaponry stands poised to unleash death upon the enemies of mankind, and their voice is a chorus of wrathful machine spirits, eager for the carnage to come. The Ultramarines fight under their ancient banners, each a relic of honor and a testament to victories earned in blood. They charge to the cacophony of bolters, the deafening roar of chainswords, and the chanting of honored war cries, a hymn to the Primarch and the Emperor's glory. No matter what the foe throws at them, whatever tactic or strategy it attempts to employ, or whatever horrors it's able to conjure into our reality, it ultimately matters not. For the sons of Gilliman are guided by the wisdom of the Codex Astartes, and through its teachings are prepared for any eventuality. They rapidly and effortlessly cycle through an endless array of battlefield tactics and unit formations, each and every battle line warrior having trained to the point of mastery for every possible battlefield role and weapon equipment combination. As a fighting force, they are a perfect balance of offense and defense, strengthened by tradition but not limited by hubris. By employing stratagems tried and tested across 1,000 battles, they outmaneuver and outwit their enemies at every turn, while also minimizing civilian casualties and collateral damage. When the fighting is done and the enemy lays slain, they leave behind nothing but ash and the righteous judgment of the Imperium. They are the finest warriors mankind has ever produced, the chapter that all of Space Marines are measured against, both saviors and conquerors, and the ideals of the Emperor given form. They are his Ultramarines. They know no fear, and with courage and honor, they march for Macragge.
We are the Ultramarines, the sons of Gilliman. Whilst we draw breath, we stand. Whilst we stand, we fight. Whilst we fight, we prevail. Nothing shall stay our wrath.
So, with that introduction out of the way, what exactly are the Ultramarines? Well, they're one of the oldest and most venerated chapters of Space Marines in existence, tracing their origins back over 10,000 years to the days of the Great Crusade, wherein the God Emperor, the master of mankind, set out with his armies to reunite all of the lost human worlds and reclaim the stars, the birthright of our species. The collective of all the Space Marine chapters in operation is referred to as the Adeptus Astartes, and it's kind of oversimplifying it, but you can think of an Adepta as an official branch of the Imperium's government. There's the Adeptus Astartes, the Adeptus Mechanicus, the Adeptus Arbites, and the Adeptus Administratum, to name but a few. The Space Marines are not the only military force utilized by the Imperium, but they are arguably one of the oldest and strongest. Each individual warrior is an 8-foot-tall monster, clad in ceramite power armor that traditionally wields, but is certainly not limited to, a vicious chainsword and a firearm known as a bolter, which comes in dozens of different forms, such as a pistol, rifle, or heavy variant. And then there's my personal favorite, the Storm Bolter, which is like two bolters wielded together. Whatever form they come in, all bolters fire mass reactive shells ranging in size from 75 caliber to 99 caliber that detonate shortly after impact, rendering any organic target hit by one of them into an explosion of gore, viscera, and shattered bone fragments. Now, though this is the most iconic loadout that you'll see an Ultramarine wield, their sanctified armory is filled with all manner of powerful death-dealing instruments, power armor variants, specialized war gear, explosives, and ammunition that allow the Ultramarines to lay waste to any enemy they encounter across the galaxy's seemingly infinite battlefields. But an Ultramarine is so much more than just the equipment they wield. You see, each of them has been blessed with a series of 19 to 22 different implants that elevate a man into a veritable demigod. These include things like a second heart, a third lung, a gland that lets them spit acid, organs that rapidly accelerate their bone and muscle growth, one that allows them to change the pigmentation of their skin, and another that allows them to heal from almost any injury. There's even one that allows them to gain valuable intel and information by consuming the flesh of one of their victims. I actually made a video going in depth on all of these implants a little while ago, so that'll be listed in the description down below if you want to know more. All Space Marines are bigger, faster, stronger, and smarter than baseline humans, and even outside of their armor, can crush a man's skull with a single hand. Their gene-enhanced minds can process battlefield information hundreds of times faster than even the most accomplished of mortal warriors. It's really difficult to put into words just how crazy they are, but if you've played the recently released Space Marine 2 and slaughtered your way through hordes of Tyranid bioforms, you've probably got a decent idea of it. For many years, the lore has described them as a semi-literal walking tank. It's almost impossible to take one of them down through normal means, and their only real weak points are the eye lenses on their helmet and the rubberized joints in their armor that sacrifice shielding in order to not limit maneuverability. But even if the enemy knows that and they think they figured out how to kill a Space Marine, it's then that one shows up in Terminator armor, or they encounter a Centaurian, and those plans go right out the window. Although there are currently believed to be 1,000 different chapters of Space Marines in active service, all with their own unique history, beliefs, specialties, and in some cases, unique powers, the Ultramarines are considered by many to be the best of the best, the purest expression of what being a Space Marine is all about. They are unquestionably loyal, disciplined, and display a fierce adherence to and appreciation for established systems of hierarchy. They hold honor and duty as sacred and believe that every battle brother must always uphold the highest standards of conduct, both on and off the battlefield. No matter their individual personality or character, all Ultramarines are known to be particularly thorough, logical and attentive to every detail, no matter how minor. Whereas Battle Brothers from other chapters are often known to display extreme character traits such as hot-headedness, bombast, unquenchable bloodlust, or somber, uncooperative demeanors. The Ultramarines, by contrast, are deeply analytical, calculating, and slow to anger, and thus are much less likely to give in to impulse or rash decision-making. Their chapter teaches them that to be an honored battle brother of the Ultramarines, one must always remain balanced in their approach. They are trained not just in the way of the warrior, but also that of the diplomat and ambassador, which makes them ideally suited to fulfilling the role of facilitators and or peacemakers in joint operations, where a clash of cultures or heated disagreement between battle brothers could endanger a mission of critical importance. Whether it be matters of battle or state, these guys have a very logical and practical approach to problem solving. They consider every variable, great and small, whether they be theoretical or practical, to always make the best decision. Their Primarch was once quoted as saying that there was no such thing as a minor detail. Information was victory. One couldn't and shouldn't dismiss any data as inconsequential until one was in a position to elevate its significance, and that only comes with hindsight. So to them, all detail is important until circumstances render it redundant. Now, before we get into the weeds of it, I also want to address a label that the Ultramarines have earned from the community that I think is frankly ridiculous. You see, the Sons of Guilliman are frequently characterized by the 40k community as being rigidly formal, with a stick up their ass at all times. And I'll admit that can definitely sometimes pretty often be true. But other people say that they don't have a sense of humor, which is blatantly incorrect. I'm here to tell you that the Ultramarines in fact have a great sense of humor. It's just that their jokes are, how should I put this? Like the Space Marine equivalent of super dry, awkward dad jokes. And most of the time, they don't actually laugh at them. They just say, "That was very humorous, honored brother. Please tell another." For example, the Ultramarines have their two war cries, Courage and Honor, and We March from a Crag. Well, there's a great scene in the novel Pharos where the Ultramarines are about to enter a situation where they have to fight in zero gravity. And right as they're about to dive in, Brother Caius turns to Brother Sergeant Lethicus and, with a straight face, says the famous Ultramarines war cry with a twist, "We float from a crack." Sergeant Lethicus may not have found it funny, but I certainly did. There's also the scene in the Knights of Macragge where Cato Sicarius is talking to Sergeant Redius, who had recently lost an eye in a previous battle. When the conversation is done, Cato thanks him for providing him counsel, brotherhood, and an indulging ear. And the sergeant's response is, "Of course, brother, just don't ask me for an eye. I've got few to spare." This is the last one, I swear, but my personal favorite scene is in the short story The Armor of Fate, where Guilliman's trying to get used to not being able to take off the titular suit of armor. His armored hands are bigger and less dexterous than he's used to, and when he goes to pick up a small plastic object, he ends up knocking all of the books and papers onto the floor. He just glares at the tiny thing on the ground and turns to Cato Sicarius, pointing at it saying, "Tiny plastic flimsies, my greatest enemy." Anyways, enough of that. Let's get back on topic. The methods by which the Ultramarines chapter is organized follow the edicts of the Codex Astartes closer than any other chapter. Now, if you're unfamiliar with it, the Codex Astartes is a documented penned by Rabute Guilliman 10,000 years ago at the conclusion of the Horus Heresy, where in the Space Marine legions, which at the time could have tens or even in some cases hundreds of thousands of Space Marines within them, were broken up into hundreds of chapters of no more than 1,000 Marines. This was an attempt to minimize the consolidation of power, as they had just fought a pretty massive civil war and were attempting to make sure such a tragedy could never happen again. This event was called the Second Founding, as the original creation of the 20 Space Marine legions was the first, and over the next 10,000 years, there would be at least 26 additional foundings that created hundreds of new Space Marine chapters. Contained within the Codex's pages is the condensed knowledge, wisdom, and experience of not only the Ultramarines Primarch, one of the greatest tactical minds to have ever lived, but also the minds of hundreds of legendary heroes, brilliant tacticians, and decorated generals that over the centuries have contributed their own wisdom and documented accounts of real battles. In many regards, the Codex is seen as a holy book that is believed to be sanctified by the Emperor himself. Although all Space Marine chapters are supposed to follow the Codex, a certain degree of flexibility is given to them, as some chapters are referred to as non-Codex compliant, meaning that they have their own systems in place and see the Codex as more of a guidebook than a set of laws. In the vast majority of cases, these chapters are permitted to do this for a well-established and documented reason in their history. Other chapters that deviate are technically doing so illegally, but the Adeptus Terra understands that with how big the galaxy is and how spread out all the Space Marines are, it would be practically impossible to really enforce it 100%. So unless the chapter is doing something that borders on the heretical, they mostly turn a blind eye. When things do get kind of spicy though, that's when the Inquisition steps in. And nobody, not even the Space Marine chapters, want to draw the attention of the Inquisition. But that's a topic for a different video. The vast majority of Space Marine chapters are Codex compliant, all of their deviations falling within the range of what is considered acceptable variants. However, since the Ultramarines embody its teachings in its purest form, and have only ever deviated from it once out of necessity by creating the Tyrannic War Veterans, they are the chapter that all others are measured against. By memorizing the Codex, an Ultramarine cements his place within the chapter as one of the Emperor's Angels of Death and prepares himself for anything the grimdark future could possibly throw at him. In addition to everything else, a large portion of the text is dedicated to how a chapter should be organized and its hierarchical systems. And to make things as simple as possible, you can think of it like this. A Space Marine chapter consists of 1,000 battle brothers that are split up into 10 companies, that each contain 10 squads of 10 men. The entire chapter is led by a chapter master. Each company is led by a captain who is assisted by their lieutenants, and each squad is led by a sergeant. The companies can be divided into 4 categories. The first is the Veteran Company. Companies 2 through 5 are the Battle Companies, 6 through 9 are the Reserve Companies, and the 10th is the Scout Company. The warriors of the Battle Companies are Space Marines that have fully completed their training and can operate in whatever role the chapter demands of them, whereas those in the Reserve Companies and the Scout Company still have things to learn. This isn't to say that they aren't fully capable in battle, as they certainly are. It's just that the Scouts and Reserves fill very specific combat niches, such as the long-ranged heavy weapon experts of the 9th or the close combat assault Marines of the 8th. Squads from the Reserves will be used to reinforce the battle companies when required, and when the battle companies suffer losses, members from the Reserves will graduate into them to fill any vacancies. Outside of the companies also exist 5 separate distinct entities that have their own system of organization and whose members are not counted towards the total number of battle brothers within a chapter. These include the Armory, the Apothecarian, the Reclusium, the Librarius, and Chapter Command. The chapter's armory is where all of the Ultramarines' vehicles, dreadnoughts, and artillery are stored, and also serves as the home of all of their tech Marines, hybrid engineer warriors who have spent time training under the Adeptus Mechanicus and are the masters of all things mechanical. They are tasked with maintaining and repairing the advanced weaponry, vehicles, and other technological systems utilized by the Ultramarines. Within the Reclusium, you can find the chapter's chaplains, who minister to their battle brothers' spiritual needs. Now, this tends to confuse new people as, with the exception of a small handful of chapters like the Black Templars, the vast majority of Space Marines, the Ultramarines included, do not view the Emperor as a god. Their chapter sermons instead traditionally focus on the teachings of the chapter, words of wisdom from legendary heroes of the past, and have a focus